Okay, first phase, crack the perception. First deep dive, introspection. Introspection is two parts. It's thinking about yourself and watching yourself think about yourself. Here's something to think about. What if everything you believe about yourself is a lie designed to protect your pain? Now, there's two parts to sort of the crack the perception phase. There's the storm itself that leads up to the crack, and then there's the after, right after the crack. And for me, the leading up storm and the crack was probably a lifelong process. I mean, I didn't get the memories of my childhood sexual abuse back until I was 20. And so prior to that, I didn't know why I acted and felt the way that I did because I didn't understand the source. This is pre understanding alcoholism, pre suicide attempt, pre understanding childhood trauma, all this stuff leading up to when I was 20 and finally figured it out. This storm was just brewing, and it was led along in a good way by me constantly just asking myself questions and trying to watch how I responded to things. I always used to ask myself the question, what am I not letting myself look at? I mean, I always like to think, I kept running into this weird invisible wall from like 12 all the way up through 20. I'm like, why don't I feel great? Like, what's going on? And I would get to this wall, and it just seemed like nothing could go further. And I'm like, what am I not letting myself look at? Like, there's something here. I knew there was something there, but I just couldn't get past a particular point. And now that I look at it, it was the source, it was the memories, it was the childhood trauma being realized. But I was so far away from it, and I just couldn't get there. So I asked myself that question all the time, and in all kinds of different scenarios. And then, well, high school, professional Hall of Fame alcoholic. I mean, I fucking killed that shit. I started when I was 14. I stopped drinking when I was 20. But through high school, just like was a dissociative, fucking numbed out blur. Whatever. But when I went to college, a big shift happened when I started telling party stories about my high school life to people that I met. I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Wisconsin. I went to college in Salt Lake City. Started talking to people from Salt Lake City, from California, from the South, from the East Coast, from fucking Germany, from Australia, like people from everywhere. And you know how it goes. Like, you meet new people, you start hashing out fucking party stories. Hey, this happened, oh, this one time, whatever. And as I started telling stories, I realized that my stories were not normal at all. And I was just telling the medium level stories. Like, I didn't want to give people my heavy hitters first, so I just lead with my middle of the road, average, normal party stories. And the fucking responses I got were just confused me because people were like, holy shit, that's insane. I'm like, that's what we did. Like, that's not insane. And I'm like, well, those are the medium level stories, so why don't I give them like a heavy hitter? And I give them a heavy hitter, and they're just like, what the I've never heard anybody do that ever in my entire life. So I just started thinking, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, is this really not normal? And it was the first time in my life where I really thought about just my drinking. And I'm like, well, maybe it's not normal. And if that's the case, why? And what does that mean? That's introspection. And so I just started playing with those two ideas of like, okay, if my drinking was not normal, why was it not normal? And what does that even mean, that it wasn't normal? Like, why me? You know what I mean? So digging into that, that's introspection at its finest. It's like separating yourself, like, wasn't judging myself, wasn't saying like, oh, you were drinking too much, or you didn't drink enough, or your party stories are legendary and you're fucking what. It was just like, okay, let's remove all judgment, let's put these pieces up in the air and let's start to sort through them. Just try to find the truth somewhere in there. Another thing that happened in college is when you move out of your hometown, if any of you have done this, you know that you can create whatever personality you want. Maybe that can be your true personality that you weren't able to let live in your hometown. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you can create someone new for whatever reason. But when I moved, I just started thinking, Like I would meet people and I'm like, oh, I just felt like I had no pressure, whatever that means. And I just could be myself. But what I realized is that the person I brought to college was crafted through high school. I was always a shy person when I was younger. I just was nervous and I was afraid of people and I was just shy. I didn't want people to notice me. I was just cool hanging out in the background, do my own thing, fucking don't put me up on a stage. But that doesn't really work. And so what I did in high school was I created this character that was uber confident, was classy, took care of himself, knew how to speak well. I learned about charisma. I learned about social scenarios and how to deal with them and how to move the right way. I learned how to talk to girls. I learned how to talk to older people. I learned communication with everybody. I learned the psychology of persuasion. I really spent a lot of time on YouTube studying how to be a solid person in all areas. And in high school, I sort of sent that character out front to reality while this shy, nervous, and scared kid hung behind it. And it worked in high school. I could just drink and be this character, and it was awesome. Ironically and paradoxically, it's not that all those things were bad, and I end up using most of those now because they're legitimate, but it was not embodied. There was a separation. And so when I got to college, I started realizing that I didn't have to worry about so much being this shy, nervous, scared kid. I would just tell people. They're like, "You're so confident." I'm like, "I'm really just shy. Like, I don't know what you're getting off of me, but I am nervous. I don't like being around people. I don't like talking to new people, meeting new people. Like, I'm nervous and I'm shy, and that's the way I've always been." And people are like, "That's fucking bullshit. Like this, and this." And so it was when those two personalities started to collide where the character I'd sent out front in high school started to meet the real self and merge the two. And when that happens, what I think happens is that the character, the defensive character, and the true self started to meet, and they started to take the good and bad pieces of each other, and it was just like this integration where I would take the good pieces from the character, and the character would take the real pieces from the self, and that character started to have real positive impact on people I would meet. And I stopped being as nervous. I stopped being as scared because I let my true self start to come into this character and meet people. And I found that not only did people like the character, but they liked the true self too. And I could tell that. And so it started opening up my eyes to what it really means to be yourself. And again, that's just introspection. I just started thinking about what it means to just be yourself. What does that even mean? What does that look like? How does that look in the world? And so it just started to expand my horizons about who I might actually be. Okay, so let's define introspection when it comes to leading up into crack the perception. It's basically the traveling from a ego-identified state into a metacognitive state. What does that mean? The ego-identified state is the thing that your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, it's when you just think that that's just you. Like, there's nothing more to that. It's just like, everything you think is true, all your emotions are true, all your feelings are true. And that's just, you just operate from that. But if the behind the scenes thing is controlling the emotions and the thoughts, then you're just a slave to the puppet master. And so when you move and you start to think about yourself and watch yourself think about yourself, you move into this metacognitive state where you find that separation, right? You watch yourself think about yourself. So you can have all these thoughts, have all these feelings, have all these emotions, but then you're also watching yourself do it at the same time. And you're just looking over there and you're like, all right, well, that doesn't make sense. Or, holy shit, there's something here. Why is this like this? And that beginning separation, again, all of this is just dissolving the ego eventually, which is phase 2, that's for later. But the crack to perception leads you into the spot where you have to dissolve the ego. So as we get there, all these processes of cracking the perception are actually just leading you to separating from the ego and then dissolving it. And so when you start to watch yourself have these things, that's your ego over here, and this thing is the witness, which we don't know yet. What is this thing? And so when you just start to develop that initial relationship, all of a sudden, again, all your boundaries and horizons start to expand. I think a big shift that happens is you go from thinking, why is the world like this, to why do I react to it this way? It's a shift from like victimhood kinda to self-agency. It's like, not the world does this to me, but the world, something happens in the world, and then I react. Why do I react like that? Like, what's the reason why I react this way to this thing? Again, we're just initially planting the seeds for separating from the thing you think is you. This is the same in alchemy. It's calcination. It is the burning away of surface lies to expose the raw material underneath. It's a good way of thinking about it. We're trying to get rid of this superficial layer of protection to then expose this rawness that has just been hidden for so long. That's what we're doing. As we introspect, as we think about ourselves, as we watch ourselves think about ourselves, just sort of burning away these easy lies that are just so obvious once you actually start to look at them. And the more we can burn those sort of defense mechanisms away, the more the underlying raw material starts to poke out. And that's the beginning of the whole fucking thing. Okay, what are the symptoms of introspection when it comes to leading into cracking your perception? Okay, symptom number 1, you become uncomfortable with old habits and old people. And I don't know if you've experienced this before, but when you start to think about yourself and question why it is the way that you react to things in the world, well, you've created that separation, ego and witness. Well, what happens is, if you go to your old behaviors, which are probably not healthy, and go to your old friends, again, probably also not healthy, you can see the behaviors and the people from the same distance you see yourself. So all of a sudden you're looking at this thing that you used to just take for granted, whether it's you go and fucking hang out with certain people and do a certain activity, and you're like, why am I doing this? This is so dumb. Or this is not the person I want to be in the future. Or all kinds of shit. But you just start to look at the people you hang out with and the things that you do with the same separation that you look at with yourself, and you're just like, what am I doing? What is this? The next one. You begin to rupture the illusion. You begin to lose your sense of self. And that happened to me for sure. The more I started to try to piece and separate myself, the more I lost who I thought I was. I just felt like every direction things were just like slowly floating away, and I was just losing my control everywhere. Which is true, because that's what's happening. The ego is about control. And while we're leading to the point where you dissolve the ego, you have to loosen the control of the ego enough to even realize it's there. And so that's what it feels like. It feels like losing control, because you are losing control. Except it's not you that's losing control, it's your ego that's losing control. Memory and understanding get murky. And this goes along with losing the control. Is like all of a sudden memories that you have, like your understanding of these memories starts to just get cloudy and confusing, because at one point before you started thinking about yourself, you just like took for granted this memory was this thing. And now you're like, wait, hold on. If I'm noticing these patterns in my life and I do this when this happens, well, that means that when this memory that I used to think about this way, and then I acted the same way that's showing up in these other patterns I'm seeing, that means my initial thought of that memory is wrong, because it's not that this thing created this behavior, it's that I behaved this way to this kind of behavior. So you start to catalog all these memories that now could be pieces to the puzzle. And that gets really confusing, because it's not as simple as just like everything making sense all at once. It's just like a consistent and sort of intentional go back in and fucking take each memory, and you're like, what the fuck? Okay, maybe this is something else, and maybe this is fucking nothing, and whatever. But memory and understanding get murky, because now the things you thought were true aren't necessarily always as true as you thought they were. Another thing it does is it exposes addictions, it exposes numbing tendencies, it exposes performance and victimhood. And I touched on some of that already, but if you just, like me, when I was in high school, I thought I drank because it was fun. I didn't realize until I started thinking about it, until I started telling party stories, and people are like, yeah, that's fucking crazy. And I'm like, okay, maybe this is not normal. All of a sudden I started to think of the possibility that maybe I had a problem with alcohol, which at the time sounded ridiculous. I'm like, fucking, there's no way I didn't have a problem. Like, I was fine. Got fucking straight A's, like, did well in sports, had good friends, had a fun time, great family. Alcohol, fucking, I just drank a little bit more than normal, maybe. But it started to expose that maybe there was a disconnect with the way that I thought about my drinking. And that was like an exposure of an addiction. And addictions can be all kinds of things. Remember, they don't have to be substances. They can be addictions to behaviors. They can be addictions to feelings like shame or whatever. And so you start to, like, as you go back to the memories and repiece things, and you start to notice patterns, and you start to think about the way that you react to life, like, it starts exposing little flaws in your behavior. And not flaws like character flaws, but flaws like, oh, this wasn't normal, this might be an addictive tendency, or this isn't normal, you just didn't want this other thing to happen, so you did this thing so that you could numb yourself from being exposed to the thing you didn't want to have happen. For performance, it's like how I built that character for myself. It's like you notice that and I didn't know that I was doing this in high school, I know it now, but when I created that character that was just well put together, that's a performance. And so when I realized that I was built this character that just worked, it protected me, I could sit behind it and let it go. That's performance. That's not you, right? And so when I went to college and that I started to merge that a little bit with my true self, I'm like, oh, well, that was just the whole high school, I was just fucking hiding behind that thing. And you don't need to know why or how or what yet. You don't need to have that mean anything, but just to even understand that is huge. Okay, let's talk about some of the dangers of introspection, because there are dangers of introspection. Okay, first danger is that thinking about yourself isn't doing the work. Now, in the crack the perception phase, no work has started. No recovery has started. We're just getting to the point where you even realize you need to do the work at all. And so as you begin to think about yourself, it can be liberating. It can be just this newfound understanding that starts to make sense maybe for the first time in your life. But if all you do is just think about yourself, you don't end up moving past this introspection. You just think about yourself all the time, which isn't good, because healing is not thinking. Healing is action. And that's totally different. Thinking and action, most people, all they do is just think. Well, most people don't think. But of the ones that even try, they end up only thinking and not acting at all. And so that's a danger. In addition to thinking about yourself too much, there's also the concept of overthinking. And overthinking leads to a couple things, which fucking was me for a while. It's paralysis by analysis. There's so many pieces. You're drawing so many connections. There's so much input. What do? You can't do anything. There's just too much. You're just paralyzed. Nothing happens. Nothing moves forward. There's way too much input and webbing and connections for you to even go anywhere or even know where to start. Chronic indecision. If you have too much information, how do you know what the right choice is? That's still how I do a lot of things. Like, if I'm going to buy a product on Amazon, I am going to research the living hell out of every competing product, figure out I'll draw a fucking spreadsheet, whatever. Well, at the end of the day, when you do that, you just end up not making a decision. It's like going on Netflix at the end of the night. What movie are you going to watch? Fucking here we go again. What movie am I going to watch? And then you end up not watching a movie at all. It's like, what the fuck? Exhausting self-monitoring. Now, I definitely did this for a while at the beginning, is when you start to think about yourself and start to notice patterns, then this annoying voice pops up where it's like, you do something and there's a voice that's like, that's this pattern because of this, and you did this because of this. And you're just like, that's not fucking helpful at all. Like, thanks, but stop. Like, I'm trying to figure it out. Like, this is just annoying. Everything you do. And then it's like, everything. It's like, you pick up a cup of coffee. Why'd you pick up that cup of coffee like that? Because you don't want to read that. It's like, it just never ends. It never ends. And that voice is not helpful. So if I try to fucking shut that thing off, or just silence it somehow, because it will get you for a while. And it's just like, everything you do now becomes like an act of numbing or addiction. It's like, fucking, nah. Fuck that voice. That voice ain't helpful at all. Sort of what I was talking about at the beginning. So you can know everything about yourself and still operate in survival mode. Still operate from that trauma response. It's not enough to know shit. I don't care how much you know. If you don't act, if you don't dive in, if you don't change your biology, your physiology through action, through breath, it doesn't matter. This thing that's in your head, your thinking, is in your head. It's not grounded in physical reality. And so you can do all the thinking you want, but if you don't translate that into reality, fucking doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? So there's that. You can lose yourself. I kind of touched on this a little bit. You start to lose control, but then the dangerous part of losing control is that you can go into this like narcissistic collapse where you just think everything is about you. And not in a malicious way, but you just get narrowed in to like you lose control, so you're like, I am going to find out who I am. And so you forget the rest of the world. You just focus on you. Just you. What is you? Who are you? That's it. Nothing else matters. Well, you're just gonna fucking build a cage around yourself. Like, there's more to the world than just you. And you need to let the world in to help you, because you can't do it alone. So if you just make it about you, you're fucked. And you kind of just get stuck there for a while, or maybe forever. There's also the problem of rejecting your shadow. If you think all the time and just obsessively, the mind is fickle. So like you can come up with connections and patterns and understanding, but then your mind can add its own judgments on top of that. It can minimize things. It can justify things. It can suppress things. It can move things over here, move things over here. And what happens is things might come up when you're thinking about yourself and watching yourself think about yourself that feel true, but then your mind goes, it really wasn't that bad, or this really wasn't that, or this was more than it actually was, or it just adds its own judgments which blur the truth. It distorts the truth. And if you get stuck in that where you let your mind always tell you what the story is, you're gonna be lost forever, because the mind and the body need to work together. The mind needs to tell a story, the body needs to resonate it as true. And then the mind needs to figure out what the truth needs to be said for then to the body and the mind to work together. Where's the resonance? You need to find the resonance between the story and the feeling. And if you don't have the resonance, if you just have the story, you're screwed, because you're not actually operating into the truth. You're just fucking letting your mind go wild. Okay, so that's a lot of information. Tools. Fucking, I hate this shit. People always are like, they tell you all this stuff. When I was going through this, they tell you all this stuff, but they never tell you what the fuck to do. I'm going to tell you what the fuck to do. Okay, first thing you need to do is you need to pair all of your new understanding with action. Obviously, easier said than done. But when you come to a new understanding about yourself, you need to bring that to an action. Bring it into reality. Whatever it is. It's like, oh, I do this when this happens, and I think I do this because of this thing. Okay, so next time that thing happens that causes you to react that way, stop for a second. Just realize this pattern is repeating. You might not be strong enough yet to fix it or to remedy it or to change it, but just notice it. Stop yourself. Just the act of stopping for a second is a sovereign act of you deciding how you live, not being run by the puppet master. I'm going to stop. It might still play out, and it probably will in the beginning, but just stop and notice that the pattern is repeating again. That's a huge tool in the beginning, because it is an act of sovereignty. It is you saying, I'm going to act how I want to from the heart. That's one tool. Second tool, meditation. I'm going to fucking say this probably in every video I ever make. Learn how to breathe. Just fucking, I have a video on meditation. It's in my channel. Go fucking watch it. If it makes sense, it's probably fucking for you. But you can't, that resonance structure I was talking about, story and body, you don't get any of this body without meditation, because meditation teaches you how to feel yourself. How to feel yourself. And when you are in meditation, you notice and you map body signals, and you start to figure out what they mean. And you start to figure out what the truth is, because your body tells you the truth. So when your mind tells you the story, and you need the body to hit off that, if you don't learn how to be aware of yourself in meditation, that's what it does. You're never going to get this bottom resonance piece. You're just going to let the story run wild. You're never going to have the compass or the editor that is your body that says this is true or that's not true. Meditation. Fucking, I'm going to say it till I die. Track patterns, not stories. This is very similar to what I was just saying. You got your story, you need to hit whatever. But it's also helpful not to listen to the stories, but just observe things in pattern. So it's not that, oh, every time this happens, you do this because of this. It's just that, okay, this leads to this. That's it. Not because somebody's right or wrong, not because you're bad, not because you're traumatized, not because just this leads to this. That's the pattern I see. It's fucking social interaction leads to drinking. It's fucking being alone with somebody that you enjoy their company leads to fucking talking because you can't let the silence land because you're afraid that fucking... See what I just did there? I actually just fucked that up. So that's a good example. I should have just said, being with somebody you enjoy alone leads to discomfort. Instead, my mind just tried to fill in the story. This, because this, blah, blah. So learn a lesson from me right there. That's the difference, right? Is you want to map the pattern. This tends to lead to this. Not because. Track the pattern, not the story. Find mirrors. If you think about yourself all the time, it's like an echo chamber. It's just you in this fucking cave bouncing shit off your own walls. You need some external stuff to, like journaling. It's why I've always written, is because it's something outside of me. Obviously, it's still me writing, but I write stuff that's in my head. And then when I can see it, I can bounce off of it because it's made manifest in physical form in ink and paper. And so when I write shit, it's like it comes out of me, I just read it, and then I look at it, I'm like, huh. Yes or no, or whatever. Anything, right? But that's why I like journaling so much. Not because it's fucking, dear diary, this person. No. It's just, it's external. It becomes a thing that was inside of me is now outside of me. And now I can look at it like separate from me. And I can then make a decision, make a judgment, make a whatever. But find some mirrors. It can be journaling. It can be other people. It could be fucking therapy. That's why therapy does work for a lot of people. It worked for me in this sense. Not in the beginning phases, but later on in phase 2 and 3 where I needed somebody to bounce things off of that would understand where I was at least coming from, which is why I went to a therapist, because they knew at least somewhat of the structure of recovery. Couldn't be a friend. They didn't know what the fuck I would be talking about, whatever. You get my point. Find something external to bounce off of, because it's helpful. Because if you're just in your own echo chamber, it's just you. Okay, the gift behind the pain. What introspection does through the murky, confusing, painful, tense, early moments of the initial cracking the perception, that first phase, is you get the gift of sight. That's the awareness, the separation. It's not you thinking about your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. It's you watching It's you watching yourself think about what you think are your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. You get to see things from afar. There's distance. That's what sight is. You see things that are not in you, right? There's a reason there's a cup on that table. It's because there's distance from me to that cup, and I can see it. If it was at the exact same point as me, it would just be me. We'd all be one thing. But the distance between the two is the reason why I can see it. And so that's the gift of sight, is you create the distance between things so you can see them. It's like journaling. I can see my thoughts on paper. It's like meditation. You get to that point where you can see your body respond to things. You create the distance between your brain, your fucking mind, and anything else. The distance creates the sight. That's introspection. You're creating distance so you can see things, how they are. Not why they are yet, but how they are. You get the ability to tell the truth about yourself before the world does. Now, if you don't know your own truth, any truth somebody tells you is true, because you don't know. But if you learn yourself, if you know the truth, maybe you don't know why yet or how to fix it, but if you know, it doesn't matter what other people say, because you know. I mean, again, you're going to need help with this whole thing, but what you don't need is bad leaders. So learn yourself, because then the world can't tell you who you are. You also get direction. You get direction because the heart always leads you true. This is something you'll learn. And when you start to create distance between the ego, the thinking, feeling, and emotional thing, and the thing that watches that thing, when you create the distance there, you create room for your heart, for the truth, to send guidance up, which is God. And you'll get there way fucking later, but I'll just spoil it right there for you now. That's fucking God, the truth. And so you get direction without even realizing it, because in the separation, all of a sudden, oh, go here, okay. Oh, this pattern, blah, blah, okay, go here, whatever. Just get the first tuggings of the truth, the first tuggings of the calling from God. That's the direction you get from introspection. So, in all, introspection is the act of watching yourself. It's presence without you even realizing you're doing it. It's void of judgment if you do it right. If you do it right, it lets you see the whole game board. Okay, that's the wrap up for the introspection deep dive. Okay, the next one is going to be psychedelics. We're still staying in phase 1, crack the perception. Introspection can lead you to the crack. Psychedelics can also lead you to the crack. That's the next video. If you want more, if you want to get in contact with me, hit me up on the Instagram, UncleSam_fit, F-I-T. I got coaching, it's meditation, it's recovery. I can fit you in anywhere along the process, no matter where you are. I have the blueprints, the structures, the practices, the tools, the understanding, the knowledge to get you to the next phase and beyond. So you can DM me, coach, on Instagram. We'll get in contact about coaching program. You can fucking comment on a YouTube video. You can do whatever the fuck you want. I don't care how you find me. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Get in contact if this stuff hits you, because I know most people who teach this stuff are a fucking crock of shit.